and others. In the US, 2 people have been killed and 6 injured in a shooting in Florida. A police officer's son kills 2 at a Florida college. The head of the International Monetary Fund has warned that global economic growth will slow because of tariffs and trade tensions, but she stopped short of forecasting a recession. The Donald Trump administration has threatened to revoke Harvard University's eligibility to enroll international students if it doesn't submit detailed records of its foreign students' illegal and violent activities. That's what they're calling it. India has said it has taken note of the growing diplomatic engagement between Bangladesh and Pakistan. Elon Musk's SpaceX is a front-runner to build US President Donald Trump's proposed missile defense shield. This is what Reuters is reporting. Our big focus, US President Donald Trump has said that the US would 100% strike a trade deal with the European Union during a White House meeting with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni on Thursday. Ms. Meloni, widely perceived as Europe's Trump whisperer, had more than a reputation as a diplomatic bridge builder at stake during this visit. Italy is also one of Europe's top exporters to the US, you must note. But the 2 leaders struck a positive note, even as European officials expect most of Trump's tariffs to remain in place, as per reports, with little progress in trade negotiations, at least this week. The EU is considering further retaliatory tools if the tariffs remain, including restricting key exports through the US or targeting American tech firms. Just listen in to what the US President and Italian Prime Minister had to say.
Oh, there'll be a trade deal, 100%. Oh, well, you think there won't be? Of course there'll be a trade deal, very much. They want to make one very much, and we're going to make a trade deal. I fully expect it, but it'll be a fair deal.
Well, I'm here exactly to work for make the West stronger. For I believe in the West unity, and I think simply we have to talk
She
and
believes
find
in the
ourselves.
president. She believes in the president.
Also, and find ourselves in the best middle way to grow together. That's why I'm here. So, if I wouldn't think it's a reliable partner, I wouldn't be here.
Well, for further clarity, joining us live from New York at the moment, Ray Locker. Ray, always a pleasure to see you. Trump has said a US-EU trade deal is 100% happening, but what was the actual substance behind that optimism, Ray? Was there anything concrete beyond this soundbite?
No, not really. I mean, he's made many contradictory statements about trade deals and tariffs. On the one hand, he says we're making $2 billion a day in tariff revenue, which is not true. It's more like 250 million.
Right.
And then he says everybody wants to make a deal with me. Well, if you want tariffs because you want to build up your domestic manufacturing base, then you want to keep tariffs. You don't want them to negotiate them away. And in a lot of cases, what he's saying doesn't always make sense, unfortunately.
Right. So despite the friendly optics, in fact, most of Trump's tariffs are expected to say, this is what reports highlight as well. But ideally then, what's the way forward for EU circles, Ray? Resignation, resistance, recalibration? Is there any follow-up planned?
Well, I think you're seeing in the polls that his poll standing is now underwater. He has less support than he has opposition. That's only increasing. And you have people all around the country, even people who voted for Trump in November, saying this is hurting me. And they're coming out in great numbers and protest rallies around the country. You know, and I know that a lot of Republicans say that those are paid for by George Soros or somebody else, but they're not. And so there's a lot of legitimate opposition because people are being hurt by this. And so I expect that to continue. And I expect Trump to do what he often does, which is to make some kind of reversal and make it look like a victory for him.
Well, Ray, as always, thanks so much for joining us. We're also hearing that the EU might retaliate if there's no tariff rollback. But we will, of course, wait to see what tools are on the table and whether we're talking targeted tech taxes, broader trade barriers. But thanks so much, as always, for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump has said that the United States was in talks with China on tariffs, adding that he was confident that the world's largest economies could make a deal to end this bitter trade war that's ongoing. Mr. Trump confirmed that the talks had happened since he upped tariffs on China to a whopping 145% after Beijing retaliated to his sweeping Liberation Day worldwide levies. But Mr. Trump was cagey when asked if he had spoken directly with Chinese President Xi Jinping, despite having dropped several hints in the past that he has. But there's no denying that Mr. Trump's administration is locked in a war of sky-high reciprocal tariffs with superpower rival China that has unnerved world markets, as we've been extensively reporting as well. Meanwhile, Donald Trump just lashed out at the Federal Reserve Chair for not cutting interest rates, saying Jerome Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. Donald Trump's taunt came as the European Central Bank cut rates, and a day after Powell warned that US tariffs could lead to higher inflation and slower growth. But no US president has ever attempted to remove a Fed chair prematurely, and such a move would fuel market instability after several rocky weeks for investors. This is what analysts are fervently arguing. Just listen in to what Donald Trump had to say.
Mr. President, on Jerome Powell, you said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave it, even if you ask him to.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But
Do you believe
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
And joining us live on the broadcast for further clarity at the moment, Peter Cardio, live from New York at the moment. Peter, thank you so much for making time for us on NDTV. Trump says Jerome Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. What kind of signal does this send to Wall Street and the world? Is this more than just rhetoric?
Well, I think, it's his rhetoric, and he always threatens people. And so I don't think he's going to fire Powell anytime soon. I don't think he can legally. And so, it's just rhetoric on his part. He's trying to get a message to the Federal Reserve that he wants rates to come down. Even though inflation is still high, he says it's come down, but it's really not. And of course, with this tariff war, that just means higher inflation. So it would be a mistake for the Fed not to wait and to observe what the effects of the tariffs will be.
Right.
On the other hand, if he would terminate him, that would be a terrible signal to the markets, not only domestically, but internationally.
Right.
There would be no more credibility in terms of our foreign debt or our currency. We would have a massive run.
Right.
Interest rates would go through the roof, and the markets would crash.
In fact, Politico reports that this may be about scapegoating Powell for future economic turbulence. Do you see this as a deliberate narrative shift by the administration?
I'm having difficulty hearing you. Can you repeat that?
I'm saying, do you see this as a deliberate narrative shift by Trump's team and Trump's administration that this may be about scapegoating Jerome Powell for future economic turbulence?
No, I think, look, I think the Fed is going to take that wait and see attitude and see what happens. The Fed said, Powell has said many times, and many other Fed members, that tariff inflation is likely to be transitory. Well, I'm not too sure about that. So therefore, the Fed needs to be very careful. And it's just, a special need for everyone's interest, for the markets, for economic growth, for the Fed not to make a mistake. Making a mistake at this time, I think, would be just horrific for the markets. And again, I don't think that President Trump will act. I think he'll wait for his term to expire, and then, of course, obviously, he will appoint a new chairman. But
One
I think
thing is
this
certain,
is a
we know
lot of
that the
rhetoric.
US president is quite unpredictable, so one can never say. However, Peter, if you could take our viewers through how do the markets typically react to such public clashes between the White House and the Fed? Are we already seeing signs of nervousness?
Yeah, I think we are, but you know, look, I think this trade war is not going to last too long. I think Trump is going to have to backtrack, as he backtracked already on the reciprocal tariffs. Just today, Bloomberg was reporting that Trump said he was reluctant to put higher tariffs on China because that would stall any potential deal. And so I think, you know, the markets are now beginning to realize that at one point or another, the trade war will end, and it may not end in the favor the way Mr. Trump would like it to end, but there will be some sort of agreements. And I think that holds water for China as well.
Well, Peter Cardio, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV. Let's sincerely hope that this trade war doesn't actually last too long. We will, of course, keep in touch with you for regular updates. Meanwhile, the head of the International Monetary Fund has warned that global economic growth will slow because of tariffs and trade tensions, but she stopped short of forecasting a recession. Uncertainty over global trade is off the charts. This is what Kristalina Georgieva has said ahead of the IMF and World Bank meetings just next week. But you know, in its January report, the IMF had projected a 3.3% rise in global GDP this year, boosted by strong US economic growth. But since then, US President Donald Trump's tariff regime has led experts to downgrade their outlooks. Emerging markets with export-driven economies are among the most exposed countries, a new Goldman Sachs analysis has found. In fact, Mexico's GDP is now expected to contract 0.5%. With that, let's turn our attention now to Canada, where leaders were pressed throughout the night on leading Canada through the economic crisis created by US President Donald Trump. I do my own talking points. This is what Liberal leader Mark Carney said after Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said that he relies on Trudeau-era staff. Meanwhile, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has been fighting hard for airtime. Maha Siddiqui has been tracking the latest developments in Vancouver for us. Maha, it's over to you for the latest.
Thank you, Parmeshwar. Mark Carney was attacked on all sides by the three other national leaders who were present at the English language debate. The leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, suggested that Mark Carney was nothing but a Trudeau redux and that he was equally, if not more responsible for the economic mess in Canada that had seen inflation levels go up as well as the housing crisis. But a large part of the debate in the beginning was dedicated to Canada's energy security in face of the threat from the United States and the Trump administration, with leaders discussing the East-West pipelines and accusing the Liberal Party of having weakened Canada in the face of the threats coming in from the United States, despite having such huge reserve of natural resources. Mark Carney, on his part, said that in the 3 weeks that he was Prime Minister, he has ensured that he will do away with interprovincial or create circumstances to be able to remove or reduce the interprovincial trade barriers to improve the trading between the provinces in Canada and reduce its dependence on the United States for trade. Let's listen in now to how Mark Carney defended himself.
The biggest risk we have to affordability, the biggest risk we have to this economy is Donald Trump. I know it may be difficult, Mr. Poilievre. You spent years running against Justin Trudeau on the carbon tax, and they're both gone, okay? They're both gone. I am focused on increasing the supply of homes and doing that in a way that uses Canadian technology and modular prefabricated housing, that uses Canadian lumber, including in reinforced timber, and uses Canadian workers. And in all respects, we're scaling up to double the rate of home building.
Well, with that, let's turn our attention now to the United States, to Florida specifically, where the son of a police officer has opened fire with her former service weapon at Florida State University, killing 2 people and injuring 6 others. The alleged gunman, 20-year-old FSU student Phoenix Ickner began shooting at around lunchtime near the Student Union building in the state capital of Tallahassee, and the suspect was shot by police and then taken to hospital. As we speak, the motive is still unclear, but the deceased were not students, campus police said, but their identities are yet to be released.
Just sitting down doing my work and the alarm goes off. And first you're thinking it's just a fire alarm. It sounds a little different though. And I'm just hearing active shooter, and you kind of just like panic a little bit in the moment. You're just like, damn, is that real? Like, take a little bit to process it, then you get to your safe area. I went to a little cubby space, and then you just look down at your phone, look at the news, and like start to process it. Like, damn, people just got shot a couple feet away from me.
I've been briefed on the Florida State University, Tallahassee, active shooting. I guess it's an active shooter. Fully briefed as to where we are right now. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing. Horrible that things like this take place. And we'll have more to say about it.
Meanwhile, the Internal Revenue Service is reportedly planning to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status in what would be a probably illegal move amid Donald Trump's concerted attack on the independence of U.S. institutions of higher education. Donald Trump on Tuesday called for Harvard, the U.S.'s oldest and wealthiest university and one of the most prestigious in the world, to lose its tax-exempt status. By the way, it is illegal for the president to direct the IRS to conduct an investigation or audit. But to take this further, we have with us alumni of Harvard University, Professor Richard Painter at the moment. Professor, thanks so much for making time for us. This move is a significant escalation on Trump's attack on Harvard and his aggressive multi-pronged assault on institutions of higher education, really. What do you have to say about it?
Well, this is not likely to be upheld in the courts. The IRS can only take away the tax-exempt status of a tax-exempt organization if they violate the Internal Revenue Code. For example, by using some of their funds to assist a political candidate. That would be illegal. Arguably, it's the University of Pennsylvania that may have done that in 2020 to assist Joe Biden with being elected in 2020 with the Penn Biden Center. There were some serious questions about them, but Harvard has not endorsed a candidate or supported a campaign or done anything else that would violate the Internal Revenue Code. And you can't just take away tax-exempt status because you disagree with some of the people who work for Harvard, some of the professors. The Heritage Foundation that has drafted the Project 2025 that the Trump administration is using here throughout the government to restructure the government. The Heritage Foundation is a nonprofit with tax-exempt status. Liberal Democrats hate the Heritage Foundation, but they're never going to be able to take away their tax-exempt status unless they cross the line into assisting a presidential candidate or some other candidate for office or do something else that violates the Internal Revenue Code. I just don't see this with Harvard,
Right.
That the administration could possibly do this. And it's really an affront to the First Amendment because they're penalizing the university for the speech of its students and faculty. And we have free speech in this country, and we really can't let the president or anyone else try to use tax-exempt status as a weapon to take away free speech.
Absolutely, of course. In fact, losing tax-exempt status could ultimately also cause Harvard to lose billions. Many say this will have a grave impact on the university, the students. Donors would no longer be able to take a federal tax deduction on gifts to the university. And it could also have to pay tax on money generated from investment in its endowment. As always, Professor, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV.
Thank you for having me.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration is appealing efforts by 2 judges to investigate whether government officials defied their rulings over the deportation of migrants to El Salvador. This has escalated a confrontation between the executive and judicial branches. The judges are probing whether Trump officials can have a full say on migrant removals, and the Trump administration has appealed efforts by 2 judges to investigate whether government officials defied their rulings over the deportation of migrants to El Salvador. Let's switch tracks now. India has said it has taken note of the growing diplomatic engagement between Pakistan and Bangladesh. In fact, addressing reporters during the weekly media briefing, The Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal said, yes, we have taken note of it. India's reaction comes after Bangladesh and Pakistan resumed Foreign Secretary level talks, Foreign Office consultation in Dhaka. This kind of diplomatic engagement between Pakistan and Bangladesh has happened after 15 years as both nations look to reset their bilateral ties. Meanwhile, India's Ministry of External Affairs has strongly criticized Pakistan's army chief over his comments on Kashmir, stating that Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. The MEA questioned how a foreign entity could claim Kashmir as its jugular vein, and this reaction follows Pakistan Army Chief's assertion that Jammu and Kashmir is Pakistan's jugular vein, a remark that India sees as absolutely unacceptable. Listen in to what Pakistan's Army Chief had to say, followed by a reaction from India's Ministry of External Affairs.
Government stance on Kashmir is absolutely clear. It was our jugular vein. It is our jugular vein. We will not forget it. And we will not leave our Kashmiri brethren in their heroic struggle, what they are waging against the Indian occupation.
How can anything foreign be in there in a jugular vein? This is a union territory of India. Its only relationship with Pakistan is the vacation of illegally occupied territories by that country.
As always, news and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Do stay tuned.
From energy grids to tech breakthroughs to defense cooperation, Prime Minister Modi's fourth visit to Sri Lanka is set to be the most consequential, one that will elevate and reshape the India-Sri Lanka ties from here on. And watch that unmatched, non-stop ground coverage on NDTV World with me, Gauri Dwivedi, right here from Colombo.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
You've been nominated several times for the Grammys, but what it's been like the last 25 years? Because, you know, music is also a fairly competitive field. It's of course, the search to find your identity is there. You want to do that. You want to probably isolate yourself from the noise. But at the end of the day, the arts as a field is also a very competitive space, isn't it?
I didn't go into music to become an artist. I'd never imagined I'd make an album. That wasn't why I went into music. I went to music to sing. You know what I would do when I started singing? I became a music beggar. I heard for the very first time, I heard Pandit Jasraj sing.
I'm aware that it's a Friday, but I'm glad I have your attention because here's a big crucial question for you. Is your fever pill silently harming you? Well, it's in your handbag, it's probably in your kitchen drawer, your office pouch, and definitely in your emergency first aid kit. We're talking about paracetamol, referred to as India's most casually popped pill. Whether it's a mild fever, a post-vaccine chill, or just that nagging headache, most of us reach for a Dolo without a second thought. But here's the shocker, because experts have now warned that we may be treating it like a harmless candy, and that could be a serious mistake. This isn't just medical advice, it's about a viral conversation that a US-based gastroenterologist has struck. We're talking about Dr. Pal Manikam. The doctors called this out on X, saying Indians take Dolo 650 like it's Cadbury gems. And this post on social media has now exploded. But behind this one-liner is a deeper, more dangerous reality, Paracetamol, as you're well aware, is not a multivitamin, it's a drug. And when taken without guidance, especially over long periods, it can quietly damage your liver and kidneys, and this is what experts want you to know. Here's the problem. We often self-medicate, and some people tend to actually trust their neighborhood chemist more than they trust a doctor. And that trust is costing us. So the next time you reach out for that little white pill, pause, ask, check, and don't pop it blindly, because experts are flagging a red flag. Your liver will thank you, because this isn't about scaring you, it's about waking you up. With that, let's turn our attention now to the latest as far as Saudi Arabia is concerned. In fact, I must inform you that currently the defense minister has visited Tehran. The officials there have greeted him. This visit was ahead of weekend talks between Iran and the United States over the Iranian nuclear program. The defense minister delivered a message from Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz to Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Thursday. This is what Iran's state media has reported. Meanwhile, let's turn our attention now to what the Nvidia chief was up to. He touched down in Beijing. The chief executive of the American chip maker visited Beijing days after the US issued fresh restrictions on sales of the only AI chip it was still allowed to sell to China. China Daily, which is the ruling Communist Party's official English language outlet, published a photo of Huang in the capital, saying that the trip came 3 months after pledging to continue cooperation with China during his last visit. You must note, though, it added the hashtag #OpportunityChina, which it has previously used in posts promoting US-China exports. Well, in other news, scientists have found new but tentative evidence that a faraway world orbiting another star may be home to life. A Cambridge team studying the atmosphere of a planet called K218b has detected signs of molecules which Earth are only produced by simple organisms, and this is the second and most promising time chemicals associated with life have been detected in the planet's atmosphere by NASA's James Webb Space Telescope. But while scientists find strongest evidence, the team stressed that more data is needed to confirm these results. Meanwhile, Elon Musk's SpaceX is a frontrunner to build Donald Trump's proposed missile defense shield. This is what Reuters is reporting. And Musk has formed a consortium with 2 other companies with close ties to the president. This is Peter Thiel's Palantir and drone maker Anduril, in a bid to build key parts of Trump's Golden Dome, modeled on Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system. Thank you so much for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
From energy grids to tech breakthroughs to defense cooperation, Prime Minister Modi's 4th visit to Sri Lanka is set to be the most consequential, one that will elevate and reshape the India-Sri Lanka ties from here on. And watch that unmatched, non-stop ground coverage on NDTV World with me, Gauri Dwivedi, right here from Colombo.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions,